Hey everybody, Tom Stamulis with True North Group, and we are here for our Tuesday Facebook Live, sponsored by the Virginia Small Business Development Center. So today, the theme that I've been using for the last month, or for the first month of the year, is about being proactive as opposed to reactive. And a lot of that has to do with, we have a term that we say all the time in cybersecurity. I don't think we coined it, but you don't know what you don't know. And when I'm dealing with clients who don't know a lot of stuff, it puts them at an increased level of risk. And my goal and the goal of the Virginia SBDC is to reduce that overall risk, regardless of whether we're talking about cybersecurity or finances or e-commerce. The goal is for you to have as much information as possible to ensure that you're not blindsided by something. So today, I want to talk a little bit about cybersecurity regulations. Now, a lot of people, when you say regulations and things like that, people automatically go to medical, right? They go to the medical field and they think about HIPAA. And HIPAA is the regulatory requirement that provides guidance on your protected health information, or the term PHI. And then, of course, we go to financial. And we think about our banks, and there's the FFIEC and NCUA. And when you go to the bank, you see FDIC. You see all these different acronyms. And what that means is that all of these regulatory agencies randomly and on a regular basis go in and evaluate these institutions, all right? But medical, energy, financial, telecommunications, those are what we call in high risk. But what people don't realize, though, is that, and we're all aware about data breaches, and we're all aware about ransomware and malware, and that it is a huge problem for all industries, regardless of the size of your organization. And everyone can be a victim. So what has happened over the last decade, that really started with California, they put together a privacy, breach notification. And over time, all 50 states now have a breach notification. And you may not be aware of the fact that Virginia has a breach notification requirement. And if you're doing business in Virginia, and it applies basically to everybody, if you, in the notes, we're going to have the links to the topics that I'm talking about today, and I would recommend you go check them out. But anything in business, whether you're a sole proprietor with 10 customers or you're a major enterprise with millions, because it doesn't really matter, it applies to you. But there's a couple things that I want to just share about Virginia. So in Virginia, it does apply to all businesses, all right? And the way it's worded, it really means that you need to speak to someone like me, or you need to speak to your lawyer if you have in-house counsel, or if you have counsel, because they write it in a way that it covers many things, just like most legal wording does. So it says that if you reasonably believe to have that the data that you hold has been accessed and acquired, if it's unencrypted, okay? So we talked about encrypting your data for a year. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a class this week on backing up, and I'm doing a workshop on backing up and encrypting your data. So definitely go to the Virginia SBDC site. You can sign up for it. It's going to be this Thursday from 12 to 1, and we're going to actually walk you through on how to encrypt your data. But getting back to the fact, if it's unencrypted and it's reasonably believed to be accessed and acquired. Now, what does that mean? Okay. If you have had or experienced any type of ransomware and they were in your system and were able to install the ransomware that you had to deal with, whether you paid the fine or I'm sorry, you paid the ransom or whatever, then you have to be reasonably sure that it not only has been accessed or acquired. Now, if you hired an outside agency, a cybersecurity forensics team, incident response, and they told you it wasn't acquired, okay, well, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you didn't hire an outside agency to help you address the situation or resolve the situation, then you probably that you have to believe that it could have been accessed and acquired. So if it's unencrypted or unredacted. Now, unredacted means we all seen that, right? The last four of your social security number, you don't give the first numbers. That's redacted. Credit card numbers, you'll see the last 4 or 5 of a credit card number. That's redacted information. If you have the full information, social security numbers, passports, all that stuff, then that's considered unredacted. Okay, then you have to notify everyone, every client, all right, regardless of whether their information was taken or not. You have to go through the notification process. And there's a lengthy number of points. It's all listed in the information of what you need to do, all right? And if it's over 1,000 customers, and you know what? A lot of small businesses have over 1,000 customers. You have to notify the Attorney General as well. And if you don't, the Attorney General has the authority to file a civil suit against you for up to $150,000 to fine each company, right? Now, it gets a little more ambiguous because even though if it was accessed, right, or accessed or acquired, if you think that it could provide some type of identity theft, because you can say, well, they access it, but we don't think they're going to use it. I wouldn't really go that far, but if it could be used for identity theft for any individual in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it doesn't matter, one person, the potential for identity theft, you have to report it, all right? And another thing is if it is encrypted, but it was retrieved in an unencrypted fashion, which means that the encryption key had been activated and it was unencrypted, which your IT people would be able to figure out for you. It's not something you have to figure out, right? Or if it involved an insider, or someone who had access to the encryption key. So if this was a former employee or an employee that committed a crime against you, was insider threat, and they had access to it, then it also has to be, so even if it's encrypted, you're still going to have to report on it. So it's really a lot of information. So some of you may have gone through or been hit with ransomware, hopefully not. But if you have, and you didn't report it, then I would recommend you reach out to your legal counsel and find out if that's something that you need to do. One thing that you'll learn, especially in cybersecurity, is bad news does not get better with age, okay? So if you had an event, so that's just in the state of Virginia, okay? Now, because some of our privacy information, it grows, right? Every year it's something new. And you'll hear the term PII, all right, which is personally identifiable information. What does that constitute? Okay, well, what it constitutes is, it's different in every single state, which makes it rather challenging. But in general, it's your first name, first initial, last name, and what it's tied to. So if it's publicly retrievable information, then that's not considered PII. But things like your first name and your last name tied to your social security number, your passport, financial information, medical information, it can even go down to your address, phone number, things like that, because cell phone numbers are not publicly available. If you had that tied, that's technically PII. All right. And it's a mixture of all of it. Now, what's changed is every state is, like I said, has it, but some states have gotten even more strict on what you need to understand is what is PII and what do you do. Now, the two worst or the two best, depending on how you look at it, are always California and New York. They're always updating their information, and New York actually published a new law, and I'm just going to read it because they came up with this wonderful acronym, and it's called SHIELD. It's the SHIELD Act, which was became effective in 2020, and they're starting to enforce it now. And what the SHIELD, some marketing company sat down with this one, but it's Stop Hacks and Improve Electronic Data Security Act. So SHIELD is the SHIELD Act. And what that means is, you're sitting there might be saying, okay, well, we do business in Virginia. Any person that is a resident of New York that you do business with, even if you don't do business in New York. So let's use an example of a military person, okay? And that military person is stationed here in the Commonwealth, and they open up a bank account at your bank, but they're going to have their New York license and they're going to have their New York information, right? If by chance you believe that there was a breach of some sort or a cyber incident, you are required to notify that New York resident under New York law, and every resident that you do business with. So if you're e-commerce and you've sold something to someone in New York, so that goes everything from like large stores, Etsy, really doesn't matter. All right. If you do business on the internet, there's probably a good chance that you may have done business with someone in New York and also in California, as well as other states. You really need to be aware. So the SHIELD Act is in place, and it talks about all of the different types of what they consider to be PII. What are the things that you actually have to do? Now, this is where it gets really kind of crazy, all right? Not crazy, but these are what Virginia's saying is if you're going to do business with residents of New York, you have an obligation. And that obligation is to protect that information that that New York resident is sharing with you. And we've talked about doing due diligence. That includes what we've, some of the things that we've talked about in the past, having proper external controls into your organization, using encryption, ensuring that your systems are updated on a regular basis, understanding where your inventory is, understanding where your data is. All right. So New York will do an investigation. Okay. And look, I'm not saying that if you have one person in New York and you have an incident and they find out, they're going to come after you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that these rules are in place and that it is important for every business owner that does business understand what you should be aware of and what you should protect against. So, so when we talk about that, so they expect that there are a certain number of physical controls in place, that you do the logical controls. And if by chance you did get a breach, they identify it, they can do an investigation and they can identify whether it was beyond your control or whether it was due to negligence. If it's due to negligence, each state has the authority to file a suit against you to levy a fine or on your organization for not doing what you are obligated to do to protect their residents. So it's confusing. It's definitely worth talking about. I can't cover it all in this presentation. I am doing I'm doing an actual webinar next Wednesday on the 25th from 12 to noon if you want to register. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about regulatory requirements, what small businesses should do, and who you can talk to help you better understand what your responsibilities are with the data, and some tips on what you can do to reduce that overall risk without impacting your ability to run your business. And then on Thursday, the 26th from 12 to 1, I'll be doing another like I said, we'll be doing that workshop, which will actually be talking to you about how to encrypt your data on your backups, on your Windows operating systems, and also on your Mac operating systems. And then how to ensure that that across your entire organization, whether you have one computer or 50 computers, we can make sure that all of those systems are encrypted. Now, I'm going to tell you, even if you're using the cloud, because I get that all the time, I'm in the cloud. Well, that doesn't matter. All right. The cloud is unencrypted most of the time, which means you have to encrypt the cloud. But also, if you can't guarantee that a person in your organization advertently or inadvertently can download a document onto their laptop that contains client information, then you need to encrypt all of your devices. Because if you can't put the controls in place, then people can, and we all do it. We've all inadvertently saved a document, even though we may have shared files and all of our stuff points to that. All right. We do that out of general practice, but yeah, you want to have those safeguards in place because sometimes someone does download a laptop or they're traveling. They download a spreadsheet with all of your client information. If that's hard drive is not encrypted and that device gets stolen, that's a data breach. And so there's a lot of things that we can avoid if we just take those initial steps in advance and be proactive as opposed to reactive. So once again, that's it for Tuesday. Sorry, I hope it doesn't sound all gloom and doom, because it's only gloom and doom if you don't know about it and then you're a victim of it. Our goal is to provide you with that information so that you are aware of it and that you don't become a victim. So everybody, thanks again for attending. I look forward to seeing you next week for our next Facebook Live. And then again, like I said, please definitely take advantage of the links that are in the notes, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great day.